Many thanks for joining OBN Horn of Africa. This is our weekly program, Diplomacy, and I'm Fantam Belete hosting this program. Today, we will be discussing Ethiopia-Somalia relations with my special guest, Miftah Mohammed, researcher on African affairs and expert on Somalia. Till the end of our program, stay with us. Miftah, thank you very much for your time and welcome to this program.
Nice to have me.
Today we will be discussing Ethiopia-Somalia diplomatic relations that have evolved over years. Before we directly dive into our discussion, would you tell us a bit about yourself? Who is Miftah?
Thank you. I'm Miftah Mohammed, currently working in Institute of Foreign Affairs as a researcher and especially focused on Somalia. Before joining IFA, I used to be a lecturer of political science and assistant professor at Chichika University. I used to have worked in Chichika University for 12 years in political science department and at various departmental positions and corporate level positions. I have also the experience to deliver international relations and diplomacy courses at the University of Hargeisa. I have also worked with the government in Somali region for 6 years. That's my brief professional background of me.
How would you describe the current state of diplomatic relations between Ethiopia and Somalia?
Thank you. That's a good question and timely question, because as we are speaking of the issue of Horn of African political development, right now the relation between Ethiopia and Somalia has reached its peak by now, because as you remember, it's only 1 week ago when our Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, Dr. Abiy Ahmed visited Villa Somalia to discuss bilateral issues and regional security and development issues. So this shows you, the improvements after, some kind of diplomatic fallout between Ethiopia and Somalia that happened after 2024. Over the last months, especially following the Ankara Declaration, in which you have this a watershed events of diplomatic normalization between Ethiopia and Somalia, exemplified by a repeated visit of higher officials of Somalia, spearheaded by the Chief of National Security of Somalia, the Vice Foreign Minister, also followed by the President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud visiting Addis Ababa twice within very short months. So now we are, at the time when the relationship between Somalia and Ethiopia has witnessed greater improvement. So it is in a very good relationship, I think, so right now.
What historical factors have shaped the current diplomatic relations between the two nations?
Yeah, historically viewed, we can divide this issue into two. First, from the community and social aspect. So from perspective of the community and social aspect, Ethiopia and Somalia are neighboring countries who share actually a lot in terms of sharing population of the same ethno-linguistic background. We have huge Somali populations in Ethiopia who lived in Somali region of Ethiopia, which is the second largest region. Historically, also part of Ethiopian population who were, struggling for freedom used to travel to Somalia in order to get some kind of solidarity. During the emperor time, and also, we have also other type of relationship. Not only positive relationship, but also negative relationship. Negative relationship in terms of, for example, historically, Ethiopia was invaded by the irredentist-led Siad Barre government in 1977-1978. This also has had its own scar on our relationship, especially during the previous regimes. If you see the governments of Ethiopia during the monarchy time, during the military regime, and even including through to EPRDF regime, they do have some kind of perspective toward Somalia in terms of the threat emerging through Somalia. So the governments of Ethiopia used to focus on ensuring the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ethiopia, hence halting any kind of threat emerging from Somalia. Therefore, we have different sources of experience of having a relationship between Ethiopia and Somalia. Most of this relationship has been tense because of the scar of the 1977-1978 invasion of Somalia. But if you see it recently, vis-a-vis the current government, then this diplomatic relationship has totally changed I mean, the government of the post-2018, I mean, led by the Prosperity Party, the government of Dr. Abiy Ahmed, in the existing government, sees the Somali region, the Somali society, the whole Horn of Africa in in a different perspective. I mean, it follows a Horn First foreign policy. In this Horn First policy, it wants to build on the existing strengths in terms of shared commonalities between Ethiopia and Somalia. We do share a lot of boundaries. We do share a lot of people. We do share also peoples with the same religion, and we do share people who communicate the same language. Therefore, it wants us to build on this existing social capital in a bid to create a bigger Horn of Africa region wherein people live together by cooperating in terms of economic development and also sharing partnership in terms of security. So now we can say, historically viewed, the post-2018 government of Ethiopia gives greater attention and sees the Somali people as a whole in a positive manner. So this is a milestone achievement compared to what has happened historically. So we can speak of the existence of significant change vis-a-vis the relationship between Ethiopia and Somalia, especially in the arena of diplomacy.
How has the political climate influenced their bilateral relations recently?
Somalia, as you know, is a failed state for a long time, for over the last 30-40 years. After the fall of the Siad Barre regime, then we have the lack of states. So the relationship between Ethiopia and Somalia was dictated by the failed state status of Somalia, because it has called for the emergence of different militant groups in Somalia, and this dragged Ethiopia to intervene into Somalia to ensure its national interest. For example, I'm talking about the fighting against the militant groups of Al-Shabaab. So the internal dynamics of Somalia, being a fragile country in which we have the operation of different militant groups, which are also threatening the interest of Ethiopia, has shaped the relationship between Somalia and Ethiopia. When you come to the Ethiopian side, I've already mentioned the different regions, the different governments have their own perspective, their own position. For example, during the PRF time, the focus was on especially the fight against Al-Shabaab, the intervention of Ethiopia to Somalia, and so on. So the considering of the region into different places. But now we do have change in the government within Ethiopia, and the current government of Ethiopia also has its own definition of what should be the relationship between Ethiopia and Somalia. So given the internal political dynamics of Ethiopia, there is a positive energy towards the Somalians. That's why we are speaking of greater improvements between Ethiopia and Somalia, because of the appetite of the government of Ethiopia to go miles to understand the needs of Somalia and to follow a very systematic and pragmatic approach towards its relationship with Somalia, and a brotherly approach towards dealing with even the issue of conflicts when arose. So that is what I can say.
In what ways have Ethiopia and Somalia collaborated on security issues, especially concerning terrorism and insurgency threats?
Thank you. Especially as far as the fight against terrorism is concerned, basically it is a global agenda which appeared into the landscape into the Horn of Africa following the 9/11 event and the change of foreign policy objectives of America towards the globe and Africa, which also made Somalia one target area because of it is a failed state which also hosts, it becomes a safe haven for different militant groups to operate there. Then after that, Ethiopia's involvement in the fight against terrorism has emerged during 2006, when a signal message, a threat message was sent from Mogadishu to Ethiopia, including the invasion of Ethiopia. So the government of Ethiopia, under EPRDF, I mean the previous government, has militarily participated in Somalia unilaterally. After that, we do have a legal framework that brought Ethiopia into Somalia, the putting of Ethiopian soldiers into Somalia. That is the African Union-led peacekeeping mission. In the first African-led peacekeeping mission, Ethiopia was, a vanguard country which contributed a lot of soldiers in terms of, logistics, in terms of organization, in terms of sending different personnel in order to make Somalia peace and safe. After that, we also have the other arrangement, which is also a formal arrangement, which is called ATMIS, Africa Union Transition Mission in Somalia, which also includes a number of Horn of African countries, including Ethiopia and other countries. So within ATMIS, Ethiopia has also played a significant role in liberating different parts of Somalia from militant groups, especially in southwestern Somalia, again in areas like Jubaland, in Puntland, in many places. Ethiopia contributed a lot, not only in the fight against militant groups in Somalia, but also in terms of sharing this federalist experience to the nation building process in Somalia by supporting the federal government to establish a federalist formula during the Farmajo regime. And now after the change of Farmajo, Ethiopia also works with Somalia in the nation building process through the ATMIS. And now it's also planning to participate in the new arrangement, which is called AWESOM, Africa Union Sustainable Mission in Somalia. So Ethiopia's role is immense in terms of collaborating with the government, the federal government of Somalia, as well as the regional governments of Somalia in the fight against the militant groups in Somalia.
So what role do regional organizations such as African Union and IGAD play in facilitating Ethiopia-Somalia relations?
Good, that's an excellent question. Ethiopia's presence in Somalia is also partly, as I've previously mentioned, is through the existing framework, especially the African Union, because Ethiopia strongly believes an African solution to an African problem. One of the manifestations where we realized the African solution to the African problem is the military intervention made by the contribution of African countries to solve Somalia's internal problem. So this was made possible in the past, and this is made possible currently through the African Union mechanisms, African Union peacekeeping mechanisms under the Charters of African Union, which allows member countries to participate in the peacekeeping. So African Union is, providing the legal framework through which Ethiopia intervenes in the peacemaking in Somalia.
What economic partnerships currently exist between Ethiopia and Somalia, and how do they benefit both nations?
Economic partnership, actually, there is a proposal, I think so. Previously there was a proposal for Ethiopia and Somalia to work together and to create a kind of regional integration, especially during the Farmajo era. There was a number of initiatives. You remember, a big conference was held in Djibouti that aimed at creating a sort of regional integration for economic purpose. But after that, we have a change in regime in Somalia in the emergency of Hassan Sheikh into power. With the emergency of Hassan Sheikh into power, there was some kind of slowdown relation between Ethiopia and Somalia. So we have the rise of disagreement, and now we have the latest of this opportunity that enables Ethiopia and Somalia to work together for economic development, which is the Ankara Declaration. The Ankara Declaration is made in December 12, 2024. It has different components. One of these components is to ensure economic development and cooperation between Ethiopia and Somalia. So we are hoping that this Ankara Declarations, its implementation, I think the technical committee is working over it for its realization, for putting the plans, the proposals into ground. It has also components of building different infrastructures, ports, and different infrastructures of mutual economic benefits. So until now, I don't know of any kind of other economic cooperation platform or mechanisms in which Ethiopia and Somalia collaborate. Maybe we can speak of COMESA, that is a continental framework which connects different African countries together, which aims to improving trades between different countries. So both Ethiopia and Somalia are members of the COMESA. We also have another arrangement of this IGAD, which also was established for environmental issue, but later on it includes also economic cooperation and development. So these are the frameworks, I mean, the COMESA and IGAD. But still, the Ankara declarations also has some aspects that are vital for cementing the existing, for utilizing the existing frameworks for mutual economic development between Ethiopia and Somalia.
Would you highlight Ankara declaration and your expectation of this result, please?
Yeah, for me, thank you. For me, Ankara declaration is, a milestone. I can say it like a bedrock in the relationship between Ethiopia and Somalia vis-a-vis economic developments, peace and security in the region. The Ankara declaration emerged, as I said, in order to address the disagreement between Ethiopia and Somalia over Ethiopia's quest to access to the sea. So this declaration set the foundation for Ethiopia to be able to access to the sea through Somalia, in order to create again normalization with Somalia, in order to satisfy the needs of Somalia, in order to also create a bigger opportunity for both Ethiopia and Somalia, not only to use the ports and access to the sea, but also to harness their economic potential for mutual benefit and economic development. So Ankara declaration, it is now in the technical process for which 4 months is allotted. I think both countries are shuttling between Addis Ababa and Mogadishu. We have the travels of the governments of Somalia to Ethiopia, the travels of high officials of Ethiopia and to Mogadishu. So it becomes like a friend's home, both Ethiopia and both Addis Ababa and Mogadishu, because of the Ankara declaration. So it could be taken as a milestone on which we are building all possibilities for mutual economic development, peace and security in the Horn of Africa region.
What is your view about Ethiopia's quest for seaport access?
My expectation is, beyond my expectation, my argument is that Ethiopia's quest to access to the sea is a legitimate question, which could be explained by different economic causes, demographic causes, and geopolitical reality unfolding in the Horn of Africa right now. So the fact that Ethiopia's question is legitimate has been approved by the international community by the Ankara Declaration and its reaction. Following the Ankara Declaration of December 12, 2024, the whole international community, starting from the United Nations, through to the African Union, through to the IGAD, through to countries like Britain, USA, the Arab countries like Qatar, UAE, most important actors in the region have recognized that Ethiopia's question is legitimate. So the issue, I argue, is that once it is recognized, previously even there was no debate, even speaking of the issue that Ethiopia has the right to ask this, the right to raise this question to the international community. But now, because the Ethiopian government has put the issue to the ears of the world, then it has become the agenda of the world. So my expectation is that Ankara Declaration is made in order to address this legitimate quest, the legitimate quest of Ethiopia for gaining safe, secured, sustainable, dependable access to the sea in any form. I mean, in the form of lease, in forms of other arrangements through which Ethiopia can independently administer the import of and export of its commodities, as well as protecting its national security militarily through Navy. So this is part of, I think, the Ankara Declaration. So Ankara Declaration also contains this issue, and I hope, my expectation is that when the Ankara Declaration is fully realized, Ethiopia will have access to the sea through Somalia. The specific location, I cannot tell now, because nobody knows. Maybe classified, maybe higher officials know. But it is also part of the diplomatic negotiation between Ethiopian government, the Somalian government, international communities, observers like Turkey. But they are doing it. What I know is that the Ankara Declaration becomes relevant because it helped us to sell our agenda to the international community, and also it has given us the hope for addressing our historical question to access to the sea for Ethiopia. So my expectation is that we will secure ports through Somalia in the future, because Ethiopia is a bigger country. Remember, it can secure access to, it has, and it can secure access to the sea through different ports. It should not limit itself with only with one country. You can use Djibouti, you can use Somalia, you can use Lamu in Kenya, and we have to also increase other ports through diplomacy. Through diplomacy, we need more ports because we have a population with more than 130 million, of which over 70% are young, energetic, and hardworking. Therefore, we have to harness our natural resource gift by engaging our population, by also diversifying our ports, by increasing investment opportunity, by increasing export-oriented economy, and so on. So that's my hope.
How do you think Somali government should address Ethiopia's quest for seaport access?
I think the Somali government has to understand it properly, and it is also benefit for Somalia government itself, because leasing ports for Ethiopia means gaining hundreds of billions of dollars. Remember again, we are international system wherein there is coming change globally. There is a shortage of aid, the cutting of aid from the international community, from the US aid, from USA to Somalia and other African countries. Therefore, they need more resources. So they have to understand what's unfolded in the global system, and Somalia, one of the gifts for Somalia is having longest seashores. So it has to lease for Ethiopia and create benefit Ethiopia's potential of investment, of population, of agricultural land, of generated energy by, properly trying to address Ethiopia's legitimate cause and by cooperating in the implementation of the Ankara Declaration. It is for their benefits, therefore they have to harness this potential. And I think now we are witnessing a very positive feedback from Villa Somalia. They are also inviting the Ethiopian government for many purposes, collaboration in operations, in peace building. Also, they are also anticipating for benefiting more from Ethiopia's economic potential. Because through Ethiopia, we have a lot of potential investors who are coming to Ethiopia. Somalia can benefit from this by leasing ports, by providing access to the sea Ethiopia. It is for their benefit actually. Without Ethiopia, then these ports become meaningless, okay? So they have to be wise and, use this opportunity, because the Ethiopian government is asking Somalia open-heartedly. Even the policy of the government is, of friendship, of working together and growing together. So they have to benefit this good omen.
How do Ethiopia and Somalia collaborate on humanitarian issues, particularly regarding refugees and displaced persons?
Thank you. Yeah, as I said, these people share a lot of commonalities. We have huge Somali populations in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, in Somali regions, and we have huge refugee camps again, in Dolo Addo, in Qabri Bayah, in many places in which Ethiopia is hosting for the last 10 years, and more than 10 years or 20 or 30 years, huge number of hundreds of thousands of Somalian populations here. So Ethiopia and Somalia should cooperate in cross-border project developments on climate, environment, mutual use of natural resources, and economic integration, and establishment of facilities that simplifies the connection, the trade relationship between the peoples in the both sides of the border. They have to cooperate in this area, and they have also to work together in making livelihood for these refugee peoples, internally displaced peoples who are also affected by the impact of climate change, which is also cross-cutting, which is affecting both countries' peoples. So there are a lot of areas wherein Ethiopia and Somalia could collaborate in terms of humanitarian relief and development.
What steps could both governments take to strengthen their diplomatic ties in the future?
Yeah, they have. I think both Ethiopia and Somalia has to focus on their strengths, area of mutual collaboration, areas of specific advantage, comparative advantage. For example, Ethiopia have a lot of comparative advantage, which Somalia can benefit. The same is true for Somalia. There are a lot of opportunities Somalia could give to Ethiopia. For example, access to the sea, sharing natural resources in the sea, investment on natural resources in the sea, investment on roads infrastructure, and so on. Mutual investment on livestock and pastoralism and energy. Ethiopia could also give Somalia generous energy in terms of electricity, which is environmentally friendly, cheap cost, and so on. So from the infrastructure development, Somalia could also benefit. So what I recommend is that both Ethiopia and Somalia has to build on the existing strengths and be patient when disagreements happen, and focus that we both share a lot than we disagree on. So they have to focus on their strengths and understand also the changing the international systems. Africa has to unite, let alone the Horn of Africa and Ethiopia. Even the existing international order demands for Africa to collaborate, bring its energy together, bring its human power, bring its resource, bring its all potentials together in order to survive as a very challenging knowledge economy of the 21st century. So Ethiopia and Somalia has to start it by working together, hand in hand, in mutual benefit, respecting one's identity and sovereignty, and working on their potential. That's my recommendation. If they do that, then there are a lot of resources which are scattered here and there, but collaboratively they can develop it and create opportunities for millions of people and livelihood to a number of people for both Ethiopians and Somalia.
What are the main challenges that could hinder the diplomatic relations of both countries in the future?
The main challenges, the chaotic political landscape in the Horn of Africa, in which we have a lot of actors with different interests. As you know, we are located nearby the geopolitical choke points like Bab el-Mandeb in the Red Sea, in which there are a number of international actors who have interest over there. So this makes the area vulnerable for external intervention. The crisis in the Horn of Africa has both internal and external factors in history. So this could also continue to pose challenges. Great powers rivalry, the emergence of middle powers. If we don't wisely use them for the benefits of both Ethiopia and Somalia, then that could also lead into kind of proxy conflict, as we are seeing in Sudan and other places. So we have to take care of the powers around us, and Ethiopia and Somalia also have to improve their internal political dynamics of development in terms of stability, building nation, especially state building in Somalia, and creating stability in Ethiopia is also another factor, because it opens door for external exploiters. So this, I think, both internal and external factors are some of the dangers that could pose challenge on our diplomatic relations.
Miftah, have you got any final remark you would like to make?
We have to read the international system unfolding around us. We have also properly to understand the number of problems our society is facing, both in Somalia and Ethiopia, because of climate change, for example, because of the lack of budgets, because of the cut of different development aid. It is a working call for Africa as a whole. So we have to be awakened and read the international system, read also the climate situation, and focus on era of positive energy. How could we collaborate together to harness our naturally gift potentials of sea, of land, of water, and other industries, so that both of the governments lead their country in a stable manner, benefit their people from their economic prosperity and greater freedom. So that's my message. The generation has also to work on this. The generation has to get out of this circle of misinformation and disinformation, and has to play a positive role in bringing together African countries together, Horn of African countries together. Because the message of our grandpaps like Kwame Nkrumah is for Africa unity. We are expected to unite at Africa level, let alone in the Horn of Africa. In the Horn of Africa, both Somalia and Ethiopia people are brotherly in many ways. They share a lot of things, but the media is overwhelmingly dominated by negative energy, and negative energy always results in negative results. So we have to expand positive energy and love and friendship. That's my message.
Miftah Mohammed, researcher on African affairs and expert on Somalia, thank you very much for your precious time and deep insights.
I also thank you for to invite me to give you my ideas on this OBN English program.
Dear viewers, this is the end of our discussion with Miftah Mohammed, researcher on African affairs and expert on Somalia. Thank you for watching this program, and stay connected with other programs of OBN Horn of Africa.